So this is a nerdy question, but I've always wondered whether the on-axis or off-axis response, like which one is going to be more. I don't know. I don't know if I want to say important because they're
depends
both
on
important.
the room. Yeah, depends on the room.
Let's say, you're going to hear both of them, right? You're going to hear an on-axis and off-axis sound.
Yeah.
Would you prefer to have one that's on-axis very neutral, so the direct sound is real accurate, but the off-axis not so good, or one where the off-axis is smoother, but the on-axis is kind of wonky, kind of like some of the concentric stuff.
Right.
Some concentric stuff.
For a typical room, right? Like for a typical room, I'm more concerned with the in-room, estimated in-room response. I find that I like speakers that have a better estimated in-room response. If I'm comparing those, like if I've got a group of speakers and I'm looking at estimated in-room response as a comparison between those, and then somebody gives me all the data for the on-axis response, then I'm going to say, well, I care more about the estimated in-room response. I'm going to make my choice based on that. That's me, right? If you're in a room, I was going to do a video on this. If you're in a room like you are some of these rooms at Expona where there's practically no sidewall because it's so far away, then all you're hearing is the direct sound.
Yeah.
Right. So you can have completely different experiences when you put those into a room. That's when the design matters. If it sucks off axis, then it doesn't matter in a big room like that because there's hardly anything reflecting off the walls. Everything is dominated by the first sound, right? Like pretty much everything that you're hearing is that initial sound. But if you have a typical room, then you're hearing a lot of the reflection. And the smaller that room gets and the closer those speakers are to the wall, the more reflection you're hearing.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So and I don't know, I've been meaning to ask Sean Olive about this, like to see if they've kind of got some numbers on, is there a breaking point? You know, like how small does the room have to be or how close do those reflections have to be to the side walls for preference? I don't know if they went down that far on the rabbit hole to figure that out, but that's my experience.
Yeah. Okay. So I should know the answer to this, but related to that, let's say if you have a smooth in-room response, but the on-axis is really, really kind of wonky.
Yeah.
What is that experience like? What does that sound like if you're listening to that in a typical room where the steady state response is nice and, looks good, looks smooth, but what do you hear? Is it like the initial sound that you hear sounds a little bit weird? Like the initial direct sound? Like what is that experience like?
Yeah. Like I don't know how to separate those two in my brain, right? Like I just know that when I hear a certain something, I'm looking at the data to kind of see where does this kind of fall in line. Yeah. And most of the time what I notice is that my subjective impression aligns really well with the estimated in-room response. And a lot of the times there's similarity there. Like if you have a mid-range dip or something, it's going to be on axis and off axis as well. It's really like the crossover region or the higher frequency stuff where you start to deviate from that.
Well, isn't the calculation for the predicted in-room response, isn't it a percentage of certain?
Yeah. I want to say, I may be wrong, but it seems like I saw that it was 44% of reflections or something like that. Or maybe it's 44% listening window and 44% early reflections and something else. The rest is sound power, maybe. I don't really remember now. I've got it on my site. I can look it up, but
I don't know either. Interesting though. That's kind of a interesting question. Like I wonder if there's a way to kind of do an experiment where you make on axis really good and really mess up the off axis versus the other way, make on axis really good. I forgot which way. But just the opposite way.
What I would like to do for a video is to take two different speakers, both with good on-axis response, but one with really poor off-axis response. Or maybe I'll just build them myself and make one a crappy crossover and the other one a good crossover. But anyway, have those two examples and then like get like a dummy head. So DMS, the headphone dude, he's going to be moving not too far from me. And he was like, we should get together and try to do something. So I said, like, let me think about it. And this is kind of what I'm thinking. If I could borrow his binaural mics and record the response, and then take like 2 huge panels and start off really far away and then start moving them in like a foot at a time and record maybe like 4 or 5 or 6 different versions of that, and kind of demonstrate to people like how much the reflections matter, and say like, you know, when you're in a wide open space, not so much. When you start bringing the walls in closer and closer, then those reflections matter. Because that's what I've noticed. But
I love it.
That's where I'm at with it.
Awesome. Make sure to check out our audio-only version of the podcast at anchor.fm/Daily HiFi, or just go to your favorite podcasting service and search for Daily HiFi.